Uptober hasn't really happened, but it may be starting now. We saw Bitcoin break through to just below all-time highs. So are things bubbling up for a break to the upside? It may be. So let's take a look at the charts today and see what they tell us. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realized the potential for life-changing gains over a 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to crypto 7 years ago myself, and back then, I was looking for a crypto channel like this, a group that understood crypto as an investment, discussed the most important things, like what is the investment cycle of crypto like? Which projects out there are interesting and the pros and cons of those projects, the risks associated with those projects of failure, the guess upside if it came together well. And I didn't really find it looking at it that way. So we created it. And I say we because it's not just me anymore. It's a whole family of Rainmakers. And you'll see them here in the chat. Jason Pena, welcome. You'll see them in our free Telegram group. The link to that is below, and you will definitely find them in our private Patreon group. The private Patreon allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord, and the Rainmaker private Discord is where all that private chat goes, and there's a lot of amazing things that you'll have to join us to find out what they are. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul, who is joining us from Devve today, he invests in many, many different markets, and none of this is to be taken as financial advice. What's up, Tammy? Good to see you. Well, if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button because today is Wednesday, and Paul from Devve is joining us. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here as always, especially when Bitcoin's near an all-time high.
Ooh, it's been exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big sentiment shift from, well, perhaps there isn't a sentiment shift, but from a few months ago. But I did mention at the time when people were questioning whether it was right to still be bullish on Bitcoin, and the charts are bearing out the fact that risk on has been on the table and extending for this whole period. It's just that October and pretty much the markets in general will do what the opposite of what most people think they should do. So this whole, I didn't know about Uptober until I guess I heard a couple of you guys on the chat talking about it. And of course, because people talked about Uptober, it didn't happen. I guess we are in October just about, and we're moving into November, but it looked more likely that things would go sideways and then break up towards the end of October into the beginning of November. And of course, the elections are in shouting distance, and we've got other sort of headwinds with the Middle East situation. But overall, it's looking like a really exciting time for crypto. And I know it doesn't register very much when it comes to the altcoins or some of the altcoins, but there are waves in which the markets work. We're seeing these patterns. It's really important that the majors are moving higher as a first step, and there's more to come. So there's plenty to look at on the charts, and I think there's plenty of interesting stuff coming up. What I would say is I don't think this will make any difference really. And let me just preface what I'm talking about. The election will either accelerate the move or attenuate it slightly, depending on who gets in. But I don't think it will make much of a material difference between the two. In other words, I think Bitcoin is going to go much higher and the markets are going to go much, much higher, regardless of a Donald Trump or Kamala Harris victory. And if it is Donald Trump, because he's more likely to just be throwing money into the risk on trade, it could just go up a bit faster. And if it's Kamala, maybe it'll just be a bit more measured, perhaps before a shakeout. But the markets are showing some signs of a little bit of nervousness ahead of the election. I think that's why we're seeing the VIX index rising and the S&P rising at the same time. And I can show you those charts there because this is unusual. But if you look back to when Donald Trump first got in, there was a massive volatility swing in the equity markets. I think it was down 500, 600 points, and then it recovered afterwards. So the markets might be bracing for something like that, or certainly selling a premium on the fact that it could happen, and people who have got risk in the market will be willing to pay for that premium because of the uncertainty.
Yeah, agreed. That swing when Donald Trump first got elected was massive in the markets, and the markets recovered. Well, they had been down, but the markets were very bullish on that news. I think you're right that crypto is going to do well, whether or not whichever U.S. candidate is elected president, but probably do even better if Donald Trump is elected. He's definitely been more crypto friendly. And what he says he's going to do is way more crypto friendly. So we'll see. Sometimes candidates promise things, and sometimes they even deliver on those promises.
Yeah,
but it is a rare thing for politicians to actually deliver on those promises. Now, Donald Trump's background isn't a politician, so we'll see. There is a track record of what he delivered on versus what he promised before, and I feel like he delivered on a lot of what he promised.
Yeah, I mean,
most politicians do.
He's a businessman and he's also a salesman, and
Yes.
I think he's very good at selling a story.
Yes.
And I think he's also potentially good at glossing over some of the downsides as well to certain things. But I think you've got to take the rough with the smooth. But if he gets in, I think the markets will go bananas. And I could only ask you whether you, from your position, or whether the people who are watching this, whether they think it's more likely that Kamala Harris will get in or Donald Trump. And it seems to be so very well divided as to who people believe is the best candidate. Both sides are being called out in a way that politics seems to have got a lot dirtier than it was from years past. Its gloves are off much quicker and insults are thrown much quicker as well. I guess that's social media. But I don't know from your perspective whether you think it's more likely to be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Maybe we could get a guess on that.
Well, Donald Trump has, he filled up Madison Square Gardens completely with a crowd outside that could have doubled what was like the total amount of people there could have filled the stadium twice. Kamala Harris's campaign things, she's bussing supporters in right now. So I saw this video on Twitter, which is really the only true news channel these days. And there was like 25 buses lined up in front of her event that literally the supporters had been bussed in. So like how much grassroots support is there for Kamala? Like actual support? I think most people don't like her. But there are people that would prefer the Democrat agenda over, Trump. So there's that. I don't know. We'll see. I think Trump, I think 70% chance to win, 30% chance Kamala wins. Because remember, it's not just who gets the most votes. It's, as what's his name? Joe Biden remind us, it's who counts the votes that matters. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
Joe Biden got more votes than Donald Trump last time. I do find it interesting that Joe Biden never says that he got more voters than Donald Trump did. He always says he got more votes. So we'll see how this election turns out.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think I wonder. I think if you ask me who I thought would win it, I think Donald Trump will do it just because of where we are in the cycle of the markets in terms of risk on, the fact that he's done it before. So it's kind of more the devil, who we know what he's going to do. He's pro-business. Kamala Harris wasn't directly voted in. It was by proxy of Joe Biden stepping aside. So I wonder whether that will be something that affects people. But it is interesting, and I'm not into politics at all. I'm just wondering whether how much volatility we're going to see, and as I say, we're in shouting distance, and interest rates are set to drop another 25 basis points anyway. The equity markets are doing really well. We've got the Middle East situation. I don't know if you're what you're seeing in your headlines over there, but over here it's almost, apart from the budget that's come out in the UK today, which won't be of any interest to you in the US, but the budget, apart from that, the Middle East is almost on the brink of World War III, according to the headlines, and it's a really terrible situation. And
I feel like in Great Britain, in the UK, they keep much more on top of what's happening in the Middle East. I feel like the news isn't reaching the West at all. Yeah, like I see very little about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so you've got a dollar premium going on at the moment, and I just see Chris has just jumped in. Good to see him, because I think we've missed him a few times on the recent ones, and I'm mindful of the fact that he was asking about the dollar when it was at a crucial point just below 100, and I was like, shouting that it was going to break this level and collapse, and what we got was stepping on a landmine. It went straight back up in my face, and just goes to show, you can't always get it right, and nobody ever does. It's always a kind of a probability thing, and it was very unusual that happened. But I do still think, and I'm not just sort of being stubborn about it, because there's no need. I just still believe that the dollar path will be lower, just because it's fragmenting, and whatever interest rate cuts have come in, they're relatively late. More will come down the pipe, and as I say, if Donald Trump gets in, he'll want rates to go down anyway. He'll be pressuring it, and he'll create that environment for a weaker dollar regardless. And so I do believe this is still on the cards, and we will see it sort of sub 90 on the dollar index as we go into next year. I mean, next year is going to prove to be a really interesting year. I mean, I know we haven't finished this one yet, but things are really, if there is volatility around the election, and I guess there's bound to be one way or the other, when things settle down, Bitcoin set for 100,000. I mean, that's like a long-term target, and we've got to do karaoke when it hits 120. I think, I can't remember what we said, but I'm starting to worry about that a little bit. but yeah, that chart's looking bullish, and we just need everything to start synchronizing to the upside, because ultimately we're interested in the crypto space and a big move up in that. I mean, that's what Definity's all about. That's what your channel's all about. And I genuinely don't believe it's over.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to come. We are live today. John Steve says, looking sexy, Jay. Thanks. Uptober was late this year. Yeah, it seems like it. So crypto has its own patterns, and October generally has been up. So this October hadn't been doing anything till just recently. Bitcoin broke to the upside. Andrew Dunlop says Trump also buses people in. Good point. There's probably limited parking in the areas where the rallies occur. Maybe Kamala, I think her big thing was in Pennsylvania, that place where Trump was shot at. I don't think it's usual, the amount of buses that were there versus the amount of people that were there. It seemed AstroTurf, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I was looking at a video on Twitter just filmed by a regular person and showing all the buses. It seemed extraordinary, but maybe you're right. Maybe Trump buses in 25 buses of people. I haven't seen anything to support that, but maybe he does. Chris Ashby, howdy, Jay and Paul. Happy Wednesday. Excited for today's analysis. Any updates on Bumper? Okay, we'll talk about Bumper. No worries, Paul. It is a game of probabilities. It is definitely a game of probabilities.
Yeah, that was on my comment about the dollar, and that's why I was laughing, because I was reading Chris's second comment.
I don't remember the karaoke promise.
See, I've got a good memory for that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the promise?
Well,
you know what I've been committed to here.
Well, yeah, I think I said somewhere that I thought it would go to, did I say 120,000? Either 100 or 120. I said, look, this could go to 120,000. If it does, or when it does, we should sing a karaoke track live on the show. And you said okay, which somebody said that they would keep track of it. Perhaps I shouldn't have said anything. Everyone would have forgotten about it.
Well, we can make that work. If people want to listen to it, it's their ears.
Yeah, I know. That's
yeah. We'll put a warning at the beginning.
Exactly. They may need some of their crypto funds to spend on therapy afterwards. But yeah. So
girls just want to. How about girls just want to have fun?
Yeah, we could have a vote for the song, but yes. So perhaps we shouldn't mention it from now on, and then people might forget it.
I'm pretty sure Chris isn't going to let us forget now.
No, that's true. That's true. But yeah. So
why don't we take a look at the volatility index and some of the other things, and share for those that aren't familiar what the VIX index is?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So for those of you who may be new to the channel or just don't kind of know the format, what we tend to do is just do a quick run through of what we regard as the risk on markets and the direction that they're traveling in, to suggest whether there'll be plenty of funds flowing into crypto, or whether people will be taking money off the table and storing it in what we call safe haven places or risk off places. And the best indicator of what's going on in the economy certainly is the stock market. So we look at the stock market to see whether technically it's looking bullish or bearish. And as Chris Ashby quite rightly says, everything's a game of probabilities, and that's with the markets and everything that we look at. So what we can say is that the markets are in an upward trend, and that's continued for some time. And this is in the face of many people talking about a crash in October, a crash in August when the markets went down because of the yen carry trade. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it too much. It's just a specific market event that most people talk about a crash. And last year it was banks going bust, the Silicon Valley Bank and lots of other instances that was supposed to have caused a crash. There was the October attacks in the Middle East that happened again a year from that. We've just seen the anniversary, and that caused a market wobble. Generally speaking, the market is walking through all these bearish situations, which is telling us that things are much better than is generally professed in the mainstream media. And so there's a lot of people talking about a crash, and the crash will come at some point, but it doesn't look like it's here yet. So the Dow Jones is going up. That's a very small sector of the economy. It's 30 stocks. It's not as wide as the S&P 500, which is obviously 500 stocks, and the transportation index is underperforming, but that is still getting ready to break out to the upside. We've got the Nasdaq, as you know, that's a technology weighted index, and that's near all-time highs, ready to break out, slightly underperforming a little bit, but that's because it outperformed on the way up. But you'd expect that when you get advances in technology. It's a bit like a Formula One racing team, and they get all this technology that they then give to a sorry, I'm just reading something at the same time. They've got a technology all their technology trickles down into cars that we drive today, and with technology doing so well with AI and all this stuff, it can easily trickle back down to the main companies. And I think that's why you're going to see normal businesses benefiting from AI and their stock going higher, and their sort of direction to be more to the upside. And that's why we'll see potentially the tech area slightly consolidate and the main sort of businesses start to do better in this next phase. So the S&P is a good representation of that, and it's a straight line up, and it could well be much higher than this in months ahead and next year. So there's no sign of a reversal. The Russell 2000 is a really interesting index because that is a small cap index. So it's underperformed because small cap companies usually have difficulty raising funds, whereas big companies can raise funds very easily. And interest rates were relatively high, but have started to come down. And this chart to me looks very bullish. You look at how the lows are getting higher, and it's pressing upwards and pushing upwards. And many sort of fundamental analysts that I talk to about the Russell, they say, oh, you know, it's going to crash. It's way overvalued, and it's, you know, these stocks aren't worth buying. And yet it's still pushing up. And I think that's really interesting in the face of this negative sentiment that it should go higher. Now, just to explain what the VIX index is. The VIX index is, it's kind of representative of the volatility that that is charged on option premiums in order to hedge against the fall in the S&P. So if you think of it in terms of insurance costs, so as the premium of the insurance goes up, people are more worried about something happening. So let's say we knew that the hurricane was going to hit somewhere in the United States, then you'd expect premiums to go up because, of course, they're going to have to pay out, and that's when you'd see prices going up. So it's kind of the same thing. This is where, if you're a fund manager and you're holding a lot of stock, let's say you're a pension fund manager and you're holding your stock for the long term, but you think that there might be a market event coming, you're not going to want to sell all your stock and then rebuy it after the event, because that's going to cost a lot of money in commissions, and it's really going to be a tedious thing to do and probably quite expensive. So instead, you can just pay some premium that would negate the fact that if the market goes down, this will go up and it will offset your losses. So this is what the VIX index represents. It represents the cost of that volatility, and it's usually a good indicator as to whether the market's going to fall. So sometimes it can precede a market fall. You know, people are buying volatility ahead of a market event, and we have seen it go up. We saw it go up. Was the August the 5th sell-off, which was a big crash in the Japanese yen, or the carry trade, which involved the Japanese yen. The yen actually strengthened, and the Nikkei Japanese market collapsed. So you can see how much it spiked from a very low level of 10. It went up to 60. So these are big multiples, and it has been rising recently, even though the S&P has been rising. So the S&P is going up, and the cost of hedging against the moves to the downside has been going up, which is at odds. That doesn't normally happen. Normally, as the S&P goes up, the market is quite relaxed, and this goes down. So I think it's election premium. I think that's what it is. It doesn't rule out a move, some kind of big breakout, or, you know, shock move to the downside and then a rally. Not really sure what's going to happen in the short term. It's difficult to know, but in the long term, I think the trend is still there. So even if it does shake out, you know, it would just be a normal market consolidation before it continues to go up. So that's what we're waiting for. And everything else in terms of the equity markets are pretty much doing okay. Even the Japanese market, which has come back to recover a lot of its losses and is getting ready to move higher again. So, you know, that's what's going on there. So in terms of the dollar weakening, if you hold US dollars, then the value of your dollars are going down very rapidly against gold. This is the trend. And this is the trend against gold. This is the trend against silver. Silver's recently broken out. So people might be looking around for places to hedge their dollar risk, as it were. Now, usually the dollar going down is a good sign for American companies because, of course, they're selling products. The dollar's weaker, so people will want to buy their products. They get more, they effectively get more dollars for an equivalent amount of other currencies because their currency is weaker. Now, the Chinese want their currency to be weaker because they are in a recession effectively, and the weaker their products are, the weaker their currency is, the cheaper their products are. So it's kind of like putting your products on sale when your currency gets weaker. And that's what we've seen, the dollar starting to weaken against the Chinese currency, and that's caused a bit of a problem for the Chinese, and that's why I think they decided to spend a lot of money to try and prop up their economy. But as I was mentioning at the top of the show, we got this move here down towards 100, which was very close to this breakout point of 99. And normally a chart like this is very smooth, very clear, but we got this rebound, which totally unexpected from my point of view. I thought it might go up maybe 1 or 2 bars, but it's gone up sort of multiple weeks and gone back into this range. Now it's only just starting to come back down again. But anybody who was selling short here has probably got squeezed out on this move and may not want to enter. Typical market move, because then it'll come down, it'll do exactly the same thing. People won't want to sell it, and that's when it will break. So the weaker the dollar goes, the cheaper American products become, the more bullish it is for the American economy, but also the better it is for Bitcoin, because the value of the dollar is going down, and so people will want to hedge their risk. And what better way to hedge it into something that has got a finite quantity, like gold, like silver, like platinum, like palladium, but also like Bitcoin. And that's why this move here, I've always maintained, has been a consolidation before a breakout into a new high. Now we are, I don't know whether your chart, whether you can see this clearly or not, but this has broken the high here, and it was making, I nearly sent Rain a message yesterday, because it was a really lovely little consolidation just below the low. And that is a lovely little technical pattern that I was saying, yeah, that's going to break. That's going to break. But I thought I may as well wait until the show. But it's done that. And the point of this is, once it breaks out of this area, there's a lot of short positions that are waiting for the market to go down. I know from sentiment from this show that people, there's less people who are interested in buying. There's more concern, more worry about the market going down. So that tells me that people aren't really long, and that means to me that this is going to squeeze higher. And there's been very little fanfare about it approaching this high as well. Amazing how these things happen. I.e., we could see it move into all-time highs and be making really interesting numbers right around the election, when it will just get completely swamped by the noise of the election, and people will ignore it. So so this is building up for a major squeeze. And I think the question was asked about this being a bearish rising wedge last week, and I don't think I gave a particularly good explanation as to why it wasn't, and it really was just because we didn't have time to explain it. But one of the main reasons why this isn't a bearish rising wedge is it normally comes from a downward trend. So if you imagine there's a trend that starts above this chart and it comes down, you get the wedge, and then it continues down. Whereas the context of this has been within the range. So that's partly why it doesn't work as a wedge. But also, I think the spike here has always been the most important element. We know, like factually, that people panicked into that move. And I always think that's a very, very important point to remember on a chart. Where have people panicked? Where have they panic sold? And what has the market done since? And we've seen it with altcoins. We've seen it with the majors. When that happens and the market is above that level, it tells you that you've reached a pinnacle bearish point, and not guaranteed that it's going to go up, but it's just more probabilistic, more likely that it will go up. And this is what we're seeing now. So anything that breaks into a new high from a technical point of view is a buy, even if that level's 72,000. I was talking to an investor about Bitcoin and gold a few weeks ago, saying, look, the charts look like they're going to go up. And she said, well, who can buy Bitcoin at this level? Or who can buy gold at this level? And that's exactly the mentality that means that it probably will go higher, because nobody really wants to buy it when it's showing its major strength. Now, everyone has different, trading rules, and what works for one person may not work for another. I completely understand that. But from a technical point of view, the discipline is that when a market moves into a new high, you have to try and capture that breakout, even if it fails, and even if it feels very uncomfortable. So for the moment, it's still showing a bullish trend. And what's interesting about that is there could be much more to come.
Yeah, great. I was watching that pattern in Bitcoin myself, and I put some messages in the private Discord about it, because it looked like it wanted to break to the upside and did this nice little consolidation. So here we go. Yeah, I think we're probably going to be looking at a run, but we'll see. I'd say the odds are better that it's going to run up some more than the other way. It's interesting. It went right below the previous all-time high and then bounced down. So it's not uncommon that it gets rejected from such a important ceiling, especially the first time. All right, so let's take a look at some of the altcoins suggested by people in the chat from, or excuse me, in the comments from last week. Now, I've had some people ask me some questions. We're heading into a bull market, and you'll see the number of comments, scam comments on every one of my videos increase tremendously. There's some somewhat smart people out there that have programmed bots so that every time I post a video, they shill some token that doesn't really exist, or it's a total scam. So be cautious of that in the comment section. If you see like 17 comments about some token you've never heard of, it's probably a scammer trying to get you to buy some kind of scam or connect a wallet to something that's a scam. So just special note on that. But we do have lots of comments on specific tokens people want us to look at. And so let's take a look at some of those. If you want us to look at some things next week and you miss it, putting it directly in the chat here, put it in the comments section. We'll only get the ones directly in the chat while we're live here. So we will include Bumper and take a look at that. Let's see. Let's take a look at XRP and see what's going on with price action there.
Okay, actually, let me go back to. I'm just thinking about a book recommendation for Abe while we're doing this, and I could never be a newsreader because I couldn't do the sort of listening in my ear and speaking at the same time. Because I find it hard to do those two things at the same time. Not like these kids, not like these kids today who can like have a second screen and they'll be doing their homework like listening to YouTube and stuff, or they're watching a film and they're actually watching TikTok at the same time. I find it incredible. But XRP is whilst I do that, Abe, tell me if I'd have to narrow it down. There's too many books that I could recommend for you. If it give me a field and I'll recommend one for you. But if I had to say something off the top of my head, I'd say Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. You find that really interesting. So XRP it's still stuck in this range. We had it here for this breakout, and that was all the way back in September. And it was one of those underperformers that we thought, okay, finally it's going to go. And it popped above, gave the signal because it had broken over a really nice resistance point. So that's a buy signal for me. And then it comes slamming back and rejects it. And we're back into this neutral zone, which is, unfortunately a bit of a grind. So we're going to have to wait for a breakout here. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bearish. It's going to be one of those ones that perhaps could be late to the party on the way up. And we're going to have to see a bit of a rotation in. I mean, I think the fact that ETH hasn't broken its important level yet says something about that there's some catch-up plays to be had. I like Solana moving up, and I think XRP being a mature coin should really be responding a bit better as well. But we can't criticize it when there are other major coins that aren't moving up at the same time as well. It's kind of in the same ballpark. So for the moment, it's not a buy for me, it's a wait, but I'm not worried about it, if that makes sense, because there are things that I think will move that haven't moved yet, and I think this is one of them. So
yes, I'm really liking what's going on with the chart. Let me share my screen here, and we'll take a slightly different look at it on CoinGecko. And I maxed out the timeline here, and I put it on logarithmic scale because that way, and the difference is it measures the price increase as a percent change. But look at this beautiful pattern. If we were to draw a line here, and we were to draw a line up here, that it's coming to the end of this pattern, which usually at the end of that pattern either breaks the upside or breaks to the downside. But then look at it from this way. We have a low here at 20 cents and then a higher low here at around 36 cents. I think it's preparing for a break to the upside finally. Now, how high will it go? Could go pretty high. I think XRP in the future. I had a good friend ask me, she's not very into crypto, and she's like, oh, I have $10,000 worth of XRP. Should I sell it? And I was like, well, I can't tell you what to do, but if I didn't pay close attention to crypto and I was just passively holding it, I said, what kind of timeline are you looking at? And she's like, 10 or 20 years. I said, I would hold on to it and I wouldn't sell it till it's worth over $100. If it were my XRP and I was going about my career and not thinking about crypto and not paying close attention, I would hold on to it personally until it was over $100 is probably the decision I would make for myself. And so we're nowhere near $100 yet. Now, does it get to $100 this cycle? I have no idea. Does it get to over $100 in the coming cycles? My guess is yes. Seems like Japan is building their financial rails on it. Some of the US is building their financial rails on it. Some of Europe is building their financial rails on it. If it ends up being the financial rails and the financial ecosystem that banks use to transfer value, XRP is going to be really, really valuable in the future if that comes together. And I think it does. So XRP, I'm a big fan long-term. Am I buying it now? I have very little XRP. I have some, but just a little bit. And the reason I don't have more is I don't have an idea how much it's going to do this cycle. I very much believe in this project and the people behind it and what's happening with it. What I'm hoping for is it stays somewhat reasonable so that I can roll after I get some gains on things that are more predictable for me, that I can roll it into XRP for a longer term hold, because I definitely believe in this. For now, I'm personally waiting, though I like how this is playing out. I suspect it is going to break to the upside. So for me, it's a personal wait, although I'm not holding a lot of blue chips, and this is solidly in the blue chip category at $30 million market cap or $30 billion market cap. So that's part of the reason I'm not holding at this point. I'm in the more volatile things that tend to outperform during a bull market, but then they get crushed during a bear market. So I'm in those riskier assets now, and XRP just isn't risky enough for me. All right. So for me, it's a wait. Let's take a look at Immutable X.
Yeah. So Immutable X, again, this is one that is, it had a breakout and looked very interesting. Stopped fairly close to some major resistance, but I had no reason why it shouldn't have squeezed a bit higher, other than I suppose everything else was in a consolidation, including Bitcoin. But it's come back into the center, pretty much the center of this range. If you looked at the path to the upside, to the downside, it's pretty much equal around this level as to where it is now. So it's in a neutral zone, but I think this is one that we regard as bullish because of the August 5th spike. That's the low, that's the sell-off, and it has recovered since then, and we've got some rising lows going on here. So I would feel comfortable to hold this. Would I enter it now? I asked myself. I wouldn't feel like I was ready to miss out if I didn't do it immediately, but I also think this is one that if you didn't keep an eye on it, it could well be pressing the $1.70 level, and you think, well, I could have got it at a better level down here because it's in a fairly neutral spot. So that's why I'm a little bit on the fence about saying whether I think it's a buy now or whether I'd wait. I kind of would go with either of those for the moment. So I think whilst there's a bit of indecision, and given that we're in a bullish environment, I'd go with a buy. But it's, as I say, to qualify, I don't think it's going to sort of explode now. I mean, brilliant if it does. That would be great. But it's in a fairly neutral position in what I would regard a kind of a very decent long-term market. long-term bullish market, that is.
Yeah, Immutable X, it's getting to an attractive price again, kind of. Now, I was really bullish on it here because I'm a value investor. I'm familiar with Immutable X and what their vision is, where they're going. Essentially, it was developed in association with the Gods Unchained team to have their own chain so that you could sell a 4-cent card, because Gods Unchained used to be on ETH. And they had to create a layer 2 so that something would be tradable on there. So Immutable X was created. I was airdropped some Immutable X because I held a lot of Genesis Gods Unchained packs. And Immutable X happened in this time frame at these high prices. And it's come all the way down here with the bear market. And I think we've seen a low, a higher low, a break to the upside, a retracement from that break, and it's probably getting ready to run some more. Now, it's now in a market cap where that price is pretty high. Now, if you're a long-term viewer of the channel, you know that I was covering this under 50 cents, and I said, gosh, this is such an amazing price, long-term value. The price is amazing. And back then, at that price, the market cap was under $1 billion market cap. Now the market cap's at 2.2 billion. I do think Immutable X is going to do pretty well. If I were buying blue chips, I would be holding Immutable X. I'm not, because it's just not risky enough. What could it do from here? It might do a 5 or 10 or 20x from here in a bull market. Maybe it does more than that, but that would be my best guess at probabilities for myself. If I were trying to hold this, what would I be happy with? And it would be in that range. So I'm not holding Immutable X at these prices. I did buy some at under 50 cents. I took profits on it when it hit a couple bucks and rolled it into things that were cheaper. In fact, rolled it in some things that had gone down. And so I was able to increase overall my holdings by selling this when it was higher and rolling into something that was cheaper. All right, Immutable X, long-term believer in, though. I like the team. I like what they're doing. Gods Unchained is on it. Illuvium is on it. In fact, VV's collectibles are on it at present. So it has a lot of things built on it that I think are great projects. All right, let's take a look at our next one, which is Rune or Thorchain.
Yeah. So Thorchain is definitely one that we looked at fairly recently, not last week, but within the last month or so, because I do remember us talking about this consolidation and the prospects for a breakout to the upside, which it's kind of done really. And again, if I keep going back to this pattern that we see across a lot of the coins, the August spike, the low, the panic low, the sideways move, and then the break higher. You know, this is doing it. So this is on the buy list. It's, what can we say? It's the highest level. Let's see, going back to since, you know, June 24. This is a nice upward trend. We've got a nice trend line from down here that we can now very much draw in. And we've got another one across here that shows this new trend rate. There is a bit of wood to chop around here coming up around $7. Certainly, that's a big level at $7. So I'd be watching that. Might not get through in the first hit, but if and when it does, I mean, actually, that's an even bigger level. Let me show you why. We put this here. You can see that it was the 7.18 was the trigger of this top. So it went bang, hit its support, which was resistance here, then hit it again, consolidated, and then had a big move down. So the market will remember that. I think this will get sucked into 718, and then you know, might hit it as resistance, come back down. Don't know how big the retracement will be, and then it'll break it. So definitely watch out for that. But overall, the trend is up. So you can't say fairer than that. And if and when it does break that, then it starts to get really interesting, because we take a step back and look at the big picture and say, well, what's going on here? We've got, you know, a low here, a low here, a low here, and this is all starting to curve to the upside and press major highs. And that's when you get the big breakouts. And that's when you get the big acceleration, which I I think that's for next year, but it's still something to consider.
Yeah, good points. Let me share my screen and we'll have a closer look at Thorchain. Now, Thorchain or Rune, it's been doing a recent run. If you look in the past week, it was all the way down to 487. It went up to over $6 and then just stepped back a little bit. But it looks like this for the past 3 months, I think is, we'll see. But look at this. It's got a higher low here. So this is forming this bigger W pattern. And it looks like it's taking its leg up. And I expect it's going to go a lot higher. So Rune, I like the technology behind this. I like the team behind it. I don't hold any anymore because the market cap is so high. I did buy some a long time ago when it got really cheap and rolled that already. That market cap is just higher than a lot of what I want to be holding. Though if I were holding blue chips, Thorchain would probably be one of them because I like the project. When we say the team, their team is anonymous to protect themselves from the SEC. Rumor is that half of the team is some Binance people that they kept it on the anonymous side so that they just couldn't be served a Wells notice and other things. But they've been around for a long time. One of the problems with anonymous teams is they'll often like rug pull you or exit scam. And that hasn't happened, even though they launched way, way, way back here. Substantive project building something substantive. Until the U.S. gets greater regulatory clarity, I can't blame them for being anonymous with what they're doing. So for me, I'm not buying it just because it's so high. If I were buying blue chips, I would be buying at this price. All right, let's take a look next at Devve. Devve is a lower market cap token, so we'll see what it looks like.
Yeah, so this is obviously one that's launched fairly recently, and we saw some early volatility when it went straight up, and then looked like it was going to try and extend because there have been some amazing breakouts and some fantastic early moves that you can never really say whether that's going to happen or not. It did try and break out, but this ended up being volatility that led to a top, and as the market sort of failed to extend from its initial offering, you just saw a lot of people cashing in their chips, and we got a deluge of that, and then it slowly eased down to a slower rate of trend. And I think every time we looked at it, it was pretty much on the sell or avoid. I mean, I just said wait because it was just going down. Then we got this phase where the dynamics had changed and it moved up, and we got this first sign that things had changed, literally from this point here, from April, because it was now printing higher lows as opposed to lower highs. That stopped around 50 cents. So of course, there's some people who needed to take some profits or have been holding on to some lows, maybe averaging down, took the opportunity to offload. And then it sat in this very tight range, which didn't give us much of a clue as to what it wanted to do next. But there was a little clue that it was holding in at this higher shelf level, and that would normally indicate that it was getting ready for another move up. So we've got this major low at 14 cents, and then we've got this higher one at 22 cents. It couldn't get any lower than that, and it's now starting to bend back upwards, which is a really good sign. And that 50 cents point is a huge psychological level that once it breaks that is a really good technical completion of a double bottom or a longer term base. Until we get a major signal like that, it's difficult to project much more to the upside, but it does look like it's trying to go higher. It looks like the price action is turning up, as you can see the way these lows are operating. But it's also not that far away from its all-time low print as well. So and that element of caution in a risky market has got to be taken here. But for me, and I can only speak for me and myself, I would, with some capital, I would give this a nibble here. I would buy it here because I would then want to add more on a break of 50 cents. And I think risk reward. If it gets below 21 cents or much below that, I could just bail out, and the risk against the reward is relatively small. You know, I'm not risking much on the chart, and I've got a kind of barrier and a parachute level, as I always say, to get out. So that's what I like about it. I mean, of course, there isn't that much data, so you've got to be careful. But I know obviously from Jay that this is it's got some really interesting fundamentals behind it, which I don't look at, so I can't confirm or deny anything about that. I just need the chart to move. But given that, it sounds interesting. So so we shall see. But yeah, the chart is looking much better than it had done for quite a long time.
Yeah, I like what's going on with the chart. Now I'm going to share a few things about Devve. So we see this on CoinGecko, but what it doesn't show is it launched at 40 cents. The price dropped to 30 cents, which it seems like some of the early investors that got a cheaper price than 40 cents sold off into that just to get their money back, and it brought the price down, and then the price ran up to over $2. It only shows here at $1.25, and that was on the way down. So CoinGecko doesn't show the full history of it here. It really just picks up the token trading at March 19th. I think it launched in early February. So it misses a little bit of information here, and the price has come down. We're going to go over to CoinMarketCap, which CoinMarketCap recently added some very important measurements. So you see the price up here, and you do see a little bit more history here. Well, I guess about the same history. So it goes to February 20th here. What I like that CoinMarketCap is doing is this part, Devve token unlocks. One of the things unusual about crypto projects, when they come out, there's usually some kind of pre-sale investment where projects raise some funds earlier than the public release of the token, and there's some kind of vesting for those tokens, that they don't receive all their tokens right away. They receive them over a period of time. In every project, it's somewhat different, and often you had a hard time figuring out what that vesting may look like, because you want to factor that into what may happen to the price. And you see that the token vesting was quite high for the past 9 months. There was a circulating supply of like under 25 million, so 12.5 million. And yet all these tokens come into circulation, pushing the supply up to almost 125 million. In fact, by the end of next month, it'll be at like 120 million. So a lot of tokens came into circulation really quick. Now, does this price drop off make some sense here? So that vesting pressure turned into sell pressure, pushing the price down, but look how solidly it's still holding up, even giving that vesting pressure. So that token vesting pressure is going to end soon, and it looks like it wants to run. Now, this is a layer 1 blockchain that can do 8 million transactions per second, and it has a market cap of $17.7 million. That's a really low market cap for a project like this. And I think some of that just has to do with the token vesting pressure and early, VCs selling it. This hasn't realized some of its potential yet. The price hasn't even realized where their current stage is at, but wait till the token vesting pressure ends, and then we'll really get into price discovery here. And I think the charts are showing that it really wants to run from here, which is awesome. Now, keep in mind, I own a metric ton of this token. I believe heavily in this project. I'm highly invested in it myself. So just factor that in the decision. Maybe I'm biased here, but there's a reason why I like it, and there's reasons why I put so much money into it. Because myself, I'm an investor, and I like projects with what I feel is a strong team and a strong use case for their token, or a strong narrative behind what it is their project does, that there has to be some market use for what the project is building. And I think Devve crushes it in enterprise blockchain more than any of their competitors do. And so at this market cap, I think it's massively undervalued personally, and that's why I'm so huge in the token. I could have sold off. I'm even at a profit at where prices are now, and I'm not selling at these prices at all. Right. In fact, I only took a little bit of profits when it went up to $2. And I sold some at 50 cents the first time I hit that, some at $1, some at $2, but just a fraction of what I hold. All right. The rest I've been holding for a longer term, hoping that it realizes some of those gains. Andrew says Devve needs to have the last big unlock beginning of December, and then we'll hopefully start really moving. Pink Panther asks, Rain is what is going on with Fias Litcraft? So Devve has already a game built on it because they built the game on it. That game is called Litcraft, and they have a token called Fias. The token vesting contract was developed by, I think, a third party and was somehow hacked. And somebody was able to go in and steal millions of tokens from the vesting smart contract and dump them on the market. So they recently released an update on their Telegram that they're going to airdrop the new token to all the holders prior to the hack. So essentially kind of resets who owned what back to that point. So that's what's going on with that. For me at this, I think this is a big buy. I think it's getting ready to run again. Keep in mind, I'm biased towards this. I like it, but there's reasons why I'm not selling at this price. This is not a take profits zone for me, even though I'm up at this price. It is still like in the buy zone, not in the sell zone for me. Not even close to a sell zone. All right. Let's take a look at our next one, which is MCADE. Now, a lot of my OMI homies have gotten in and bought MCADE. Let's take a look at what's going on with them and what we can see.
So in the short term, it has, oh, where's my mouse? There we go. In the short term, we've seen a rally. It's come back and not a lot to see here at this point. But I do like this technical pattern. It does look like there's an inverse head and shoulders forming, although it's come a little too far on the retracement for this to be kind of a valid pattern from here. So it could still be building up into a more broader base, a bigger base. But I think the most important feature for me on this chart is this spike again. Like, you know, the although on this one it says the 20th of September, it was the 5th of August that was the it was the big sell-off. Now, is this the one? There was a chart where we just missed the whole of July. Yeah, and this is it. I was just looking at just before we came on air. I was trying to find the 5th of August decline, and look, if we look at this daily chart, we've got 25th of August, and then the day before that's 24th. Then we've got 26th of July. So between this point and this point, something has gone very wrong with the data. So we've got a jump from 26th of June, we missed the whole of July, and now we're back in August. So I don't really know.
Migrated from an old contract to a new contract, though I'm not sure why. CoinGecko is sharing that with me.
So, I mean, it flows. The chart looks like a natural move, and there's nothing kind of unusual about what happened in between. It was just when there's this gap, it just puts a question mark as to whether there's a problem with the chart data or whether it's just something perfectly normal that's been resolved. So the situation here is that there should be some good support at this level anyway. And I think, bearing in mind these low spikes represent the bearish pinnacle for quite a few charts. If it wanted to go lower, you know, it had its chance, and now it's moving up. So I'd say it's a modest buy, a moderate buy, and I'd like to see it recover back into this area here. This is much more interesting to me than where it is here, and I don't mind paying more for something if I think the probability is greater that it's going to break out. So I think at this point, I would say it's a wait, just because it's sitting on support. If I was feeling very speculative and I could just sort of scattergun money everywhere, then I'd say buy this as well. But if I have to be a bit more cautious about, in reality, you can't buy everything. You have to pick and choose. So I think I would more likely, for me, wait. But it's not a bearish chart, I would say, either. So quite happy to if I had it, I would be quite happy to sit with it. But I would be expecting to have to sit with it at this point. And it would only get exciting for me when it starts to knock on these levels again. And obviously this 1 cent level, big psychological point. And at some point in the future, when it breaks that, that is where it really starts to open up and should be, trending aggressively, which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for these big dynamic moves and the levels that indicate those are going to happen. And in between, you can get a lot of grinding price action, as we've seen with Bitcoin and some of the other markets. But yeah, it's well above its major low. There are obviously things going on with it that I don't know about, that with regard to this gap in the price action. But that said, the chart's still looking okay.
So I was just doing some more research on it. So you would rate this a small buy, or was it a wait?
I would be sympathetic to a small buy at this point, but I personally, I would wait, but a small buy would be the good sort of in between position to having nothing and having something.
I'm looking for a little bit more information on it. There's something I found that's very curious to me. When you come to CoinGecko, I like where the price action is at. This chart is, or it's got a slightly higher low than it did here, and it's got this nice W pattern. So the chart's looking pretty good, but look at this little flag from CoinGecko. It says, according to Go Plus, the contract creator can make changes to the token contract, such as disabling cells, changing fees, minting, transferring tokens, etc. Exercise caution. That's interesting. That is a concern. It also says MCADE has recently migrated from their old contract to a new contract. For more information, please visit this post. Now, I was trying to get more information on them because I saw some people post forward some posts from them about some big hires to their team. And so I was trying to go, okay, my link wasn't working here before. This is good. So Medicaid, cool. So this link is now working. I'm a fundamental investor, so I like to know what's going on behind the scenes with a project. I do like that they went ahead and did their token on base. I think that was a good move. I don't own any of their tokens to this point. A lot of it is simply because I have a lot of projects I really, really like, that I really, really know, that I've done a lot of research on the last couple of years. And I haven't seen enough on this that I've just dug deeper and said, okay, I'm super excited about this. I'm going to research it for hours and hours and hours and throw some money into it. So I would say I have about half an hour's worth of research into this. I do like where the token is. This is a really big concern to me. Could be nothing, but this is a big thing to ask the team about, like, what the hell is this all about? You don't want them to have the ability to disable selling, changing fees, minting, transferring tokens, etc. Like, that would give them centralized company powers in a decentralized environment. Sounds concerning to me. So I can't buy it until I have resolution on this. But I like what's going on here. I like the big announcement that they hired somebody big from the gaming environment, which is cool. Do I like arcade type games that they're trying to build here? Not so much. I don't personally, but I didn't personally like Axie Infinity's gameplay at all, and yet I made a ton of money off of it. So do I understand that there are a lot of people that do play these type of games? Yes. And so it's in an interesting narrative. Would I buy it? Not until I know what's going on with the exercise caution part here. So, like, I shared the wrong tab earlier. This is what, like, the arcade style games, like what those tend to look like. Just simple games that people can play on their phone, which there's a lot of people that just like simple games like this for them to play a few minutes on the phone. So they're in a narrative that's interesting. Just really, my question is, what the hell is going on with this? Maybe somebody in the comments knows. Checking the comments. Pink Panther asked, did I miss OMI analysis? We have not covered OMI today. Yeah, Andrew Dunlap says MCADE switched. And let's see, maybe it's because they their token got hacked like we saw with Fios. And they had to bring it over to a new token contract. That's happened to a lot of projects. I mean, a lot of projects that I know, they had some kind of theft or some kind of thing going on, that somebody hacked their contract or hacked a staking pool or something and then dumped all the tokens. They had to create a whole new token. So OMI 240 million says, let's go MCADE. Looks good. That's just a big red flag here, but the chart looks good. I would just exercise caution about this part. This is just the big red flag in the way for me, as well as I haven't done as much fundamental analysis on them as I would like, but it's good enough. I would have rated this as a buy just off the chart and the narrative that they're in, and the fact that they brought in a major gaming ecosystem person other than this red flag. So for me, it's just a wait just on that. Now, many of you might already have resolution on what the heck this is all about. Cool. Yeah, if it weren't for that, it would be a go for me. All right, guys. We can take a look at OMI. We have some time. Let me make sure we've gone through comments above it. Oh, we have KASPA to look at. Bumper. Let's go to Bumper first, then KASPA, then Litecoin.
Okay. So KASPA, it's been a fantastic chart, isn't it? Really leading the way up, and it got into a high in August. It got sold off on the 5th with everything else, but unlike everything else, it's below that level now. So I think this I can see why you're asking about it right here, because look, this is right on this major support point. At 10 cents, it's bounced before, it's held there before, and it should hold again. So I would say for me at the moment, it's a wait, because I wouldn't want to sell it against such a big level. But the pressure to the downside has been growing. There's a slight sense of acceleration and bit of profit taking. And if it gets through this support here, which is the lowest part is about 9.4, that could see it drop quite quickly towards this 5 cents point. So does it change the overall trend? No, I don't think it does. So I really think it also depends on what your time frame is, whether it's a short term or long term. When I don't know what to do with a trade, or if I'm in this indecision point, sometimes think selling half is not a bad strategy, because if it goes up, you still got half. If it goes down, you've sold half and you've taken some profit. So rather than it being an all or nothing, we can leg in and leg out of things. But where it is now, I would be inclined, for me, and obviously everyone else should do whatever they want to do, but for me, I'd be inclined to wait, because it's sitting against a very important level, and things within the space are hotting up, i.e. Bitcoin is about to make a new high. And I don't see that as a negative for any coin that's, performed well. This one's outperformed. If anything, it's just, it's underperforming a little bit here from a much, excuse me, a much higher level. So I think the summary is, I would personally see this as a wait here. I like it long term. But it wouldn't surprise me if it did get hit a little bit hard, if it managed to get through this support level, because there is so much support around, well, very close to the current price, around 10 cents.
Yeah, for me, this is a bit concerning, because it's already hit essentially almost 100x from this price. So it's gone almost 100x when it went to here from the price that it was. So it's about 80x during a time that most things just traded sideways. So how much more room does this have to run up? Well, say it went 5x from here. Oh, I guess that's not 100. Is that 100? It is 100x from there. At like 22 cents, this would have been 100x. So it's pulled back down. It's sitting at 50x from this price. So how much higher could it go? Maybe 10x left. But if somebody's taken this ride, if I had taken this ride, I would be diversifying into things that still haven't hit the narrative, because what has been going up in crypto doesn't always continue to go up. At some point, the narratives flip around and people that took this amazing ride up start rolling their money into other things, and it can create a big break to the downside. If you look at this on the log scale, it's been losing momentum on the percent increase for a while now. I'm just concerned. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't go up from here, and you might be like, Rain, if you were holding this and you sold now and you missed another 5x up. Yeah, that is the risk. Or another 10x from here. Yeah, that is the risk. And I would be rolling into things that I felt had a strong probability of going 50x or 100x from here. And so it's now solidly in blue chip category. Where can it go from here? I don't know where it can go from here, but let's just say it's already done 100x up to this point. Maybe it does 1,000x overall. That means a 20x from here. But if I rolled those funds into something that then did a 50x from here, I would be further ahead. So, and that's assuming I had gotten in at this price, right? So it's taken an amazing run. Amazing runs don't last for forever. So will KASPA continue? I don't know. But I start to get really worried when it's been running up for so long and outperforming everything for so long. That doesn't stay happening for forever in the crypto space. All right, let's take a look at Bumper.
Yeah. So when we last looked at Bumper, we did mention the obvious spike on here, and I think I'd like to get to the bottom of what that was, whether that was real or not. And to be honest, at this point, I don't know what happened there, whether it's just a bad print on the price or whether it did actually sort of spike down there from a big sale of some kind and then recover. So if we ignore it and we say it didn't happen, it is still pressing lows. And my view here would be it'd be a wait anyway, because it still hasn't properly broken this pattern of lower highs, this downward trend. It is below major support when we go all the way back here. That to me is fairly crucial. It needs to get at least above there before we can start talking about a proper recovery. So at the moment, it's still looking soft. It's looking like it might actually attempt to break even lower again, because it's knocking on this support area. It did have a little rally at this point on the 22nd of October, but it's 100% retraced pretty much that move. So it's back down. Whatever bullish incident happened there, it's come back down again. The only other thing I could say is that with the markets broadly hotting up, the use case might be more conducive to this doing well. I don't know whether that's part of what the problem is. Don't know anything really about the fundamentals there, other than it's a hedging strategy, and that's likely to be more in vogue when the markets are doing well and going higher, or there is a lot of volatility. And certainly for the last 6 months, it's been a pretty much of a grind in the majors, and it wouldn't have given many people cause to actually hedge, but that's changing. So we'll see whether that change impacts directly on the business. Other than that, I think speaking or seeing what sort of announcements are being made from the management team would be a good strategy. And I know I look at it from a technical point of view, but I think there are times when I think it is important to find out what's actually happening with a project. in order to get a bit more clarity. But from a technical point of view, it's not showing enough for a reversal as yet. So it's definitely in the wait category, but let's come back to it once, you know, Bitcoin's broken into sort of 80, 90,000, see whether it starts to perk up.
Yeah, let me share some things. I want to step back and go to MCADE real quick. Andrew Dunlap says they switched from ETH to Base. That makes sense. I had been thinking they were on ETH, and then it didn't show that history on Base. This is often a point that I like to buy on a project, but I'm still concerned about this. But this higher low and yet still at the lows is a really interesting point. It seems like it's got this rounded bottom and it's starting to trend up, but it's at this low point. I really love this buy point in here, as well as it went to, I remember when it went to 4.
I've kind of lost you.
Yeah,
Myria.
my internet's been acting interesting again. Went through a period for like 2 months that it was doing this, and then it stopped, and now it's doing it again. So it went to a 4 cents here, and this is why I don't buy green candles, because long green candles are often associated with big pullbacks like this. It looks like a lot of their tokens have vested, and this is a really, really interesting point. Now, I do like to buy red candles, and a lot of people think I'm crazy. This is a red candle that I like. Now, I loaded the boats up a bunch more at 5 cents when it went down to here, and got a bunch more at 5 cents. So it's now even a lot cheaper than I just paid. I bought $50,000 additional worth of bumper here, and now, gosh, that's worth like $12,500. That 50,000 I put in. That happens in these higher risk altcoins. This is an amazing price. Now, I was getting a little bit worried about bumper because the team had been really slow to get back to me, which hadn't been a thing with them. They'd always been pretty good about that. And but then we spoke 2 weeks ago, and they shared with me that they're getting a new marketing person, and they hadn't officially announced who it was. And as I talked to them, everything seemed in order. Like it was actually going really, really good. And that's one of the reasons I created this channel, is because when I was just a regular investor, even if I had tens of thousands of dollars in a project, it wasn't enough that the teams would ever respond to me. It wasn't until I created a YouTube channel and had a sizable enough audience that I could actually get that kind of interaction from the projects that I was interested in. And that's the kind of information that I needed to know as an investor, because when things look shaky on the price, it's really good to be able to reach out to a team and get an idea what's going on behind the scenes, to figure out if this is a great buy level or it's the boat is sinking and the rats are jumping off the ship because they realize the boat is sinking. I didn't get that feeling from Bumper. I got the opposite feeling from them. So that was my assessment for myself. So I'm not selling it any at this point. This is a load up price, and I hope something else in my portfolio pumps really well so that I can buy a bunch more Bumper at cheap for like extra cheap here, because I think this is a steal of a deal. And their new marketing person does have substantive contacts in the crypto space, which is an important thing for them to grow awareness, because right now the awareness of what Bumper does is just so low in the crypto space. Most of the DeFi space is completely unaware of Bumper, even though they've created something really cool that I think DeFi really benefits from. All right, so Litecoin. Justin asked us to look at Litecoin. It's been forever since I looked at Litecoin, so let's check it out.
Yeah, I think it's good timing on Litecoin actually, because I like this technical setup. We've got, see this resistance line, 1, 2, 3, lining up perfectly, and we've got the August 5th sell-off here. So this could be the left shoulder. Let me just show you what's potentially happening. This is like a left shoulder. This is the that sort of head area, and this is forming into, possibly from here, into a right shoulder, and the breakout point will come in here. So the point is we are very close to a breakout point, and there's two ways to approach this. I could either buy it here, which is slightly jumping the gun because it hasn't broken through this resistance, but I'm getting it ahead of the breakout. The risk of that is that it doesn't break out, it just goes sideways, comes back down, and then if you're holding it, your capital's stuck, and you might have to sell it out and move into something else, or just ride it out until it goes back up again. Against taking it as it breaks through this level, which means that you might be chasing it a bit more. So instead of getting it around 72, which is where it is now, you might be paying sort of 77, 78, and your risk reward gets slightly diminished by that, because with every trade in my book, there has to be a stop, and your stop, the good place for a stop would be below $67, and that's $10 to the downside. Whereas if we're buying it here, it's clearly a lot less. So, it's about $6 or so for a stop. So that's the dilemma. But as far as the price action goes, and as far as Bitcoin leading the move goes, and the fact that it's very likely that people have taken their eye off the ball, which is what I like about it the most, I think this could be a really interesting breakout. So I think by next week, we'll see this sort of at 77. So I wouldn't mind looking at it at next week, because I think this is about to do, if it's going to do it, it's going to do it in a very short term. So, yeah, for me, it's a buy and could be a timely look. And I'm actually intrigued as to why particularly you wanted to look at this, only because it does look like it's ready to go, and whether you had some inkling as to the same, or whether there was something fundamentally that was important that might justify it moving.
Interesting suggestion by Justin. I don't hold any Litecoin. It was really just a fork off of Bitcoin with some properties that could make it happen faster, and a number of things. So a lot of the early altcoins were just different forks off of Bitcoin. And the narrative behind Litecoin was, well, Bitcoin is digital gold and Litecoin is digital silver. But at the top here, one of the people who've helped founded Litecoin sold off most of his Litecoin, and since then has been subsequently out of the project. I just fundamentally don't know if Litecoin is going to be around long term. I like to buy things where I understand how their narrative is going to improve the Web3 world. I don't know how Litecoin is really going to improve the Web3 world. I don't know that it's gotten enough traction to be around like Bitcoin is. And so I just don't invest in Litecoin at all, even if I like the chart. And the chart's actually pretty good. So I like the chart. I'm not buying it. First of all, market cap's higher than is interesting to me. And what I think about is the opportunity cost. I could have my money in this, and maybe it could 5x from here. And that's really exciting. But this run is one I've been waiting for 3 years. And this next year is the most important holding period of what kind of gains are possible. And I would see 5x is a major loss for me versus what other opportunities I could have been in that might have gone 20 or 100 or 200x during that time. So for me, Litecoin, if I had any, I would personally sell it, and I would be rolling into better things. Just like it's at a point that I would be selling KASPA and I'd be rolling it into other things, just so I could hopefully get better gains ahead from what I feel the potential is on those two. That's just my personal preference. That's definitely not telling any of you what to do. You have to make your own decisions. That's just what my goals are aligned for, and what my expectations are, and what my analysis for myself is. All right, let's take a look at OMI. This will be our last one to look at for the day. Let's just see what's going on with OMI.
Yeah. So I think the last time we spoke about OMI, I basically said, headline again was it's a wait, but I also said it would probably break the low, and that's where people would go short and then it would go up again, and that's when it could potentially have its big move. So it has broken into a new low, and that would be technically a sell signal, but it's actually rejected that move. So having hung around and then broken the low, you'd expect some continuation if the trend wanted to really continue down, and instead it's just hit it and then gone straight back up again. That can be regarded as a stop loss taking exercise. So people know that there are stops, like technical stops below that level. It's the obvious place to put your stop. So what happens is the market just goes a little bit through, takes those stops, and then goes back up again. So that's normally an indication that we're reaching a saturation point for a trend and it's ready to turn. But of course, we need the confirmation that it has turned, and that next step is it could at least stay above this 63-day moving average, which has been consistently to the downside. 200-day moving average is quite far away up here. So I'm just saying, if you take away the noise of the trend, you can actually see it's still, moving to the downside. But there is some other evidence that you wouldn't see just by looking at the moving average, and that is that it has been consolidating pretty much since September, whereas prior to that it was fairly clear that it was making fresh lows, lower highs, lower lows in a more consistent way, shall we say. So it's still not enough for me to change my view on it, but there's still some interesting things happening. And if it can at least close above this 63-day moving average from a couple of days perspective, it would look much better. But it has got a lot of work to get back to this major point, which is kind of the underwater point for me, where it sort of indicated that it was potentially going to be going much lower. So, but if it can at least, I would say, get above this 4027 area, or recover this 41, which is that first phase support, which would now be resistance. Again, that it would change the chart immeasurably. It would look much better. So we can only wait, but for the moment, for me, it is definitely a wait.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the way that I invest in crypto is scary to a lot of people, and they can't go the same route that I go. So if we rewind time back to the last bear market, one of the decisions I made was that I felt like Cardano had a fairly good probability of making it until the following bull run. And at the time, most of the market disagreed with me. Now, because I've been proven right, people don't realize how scary it was back 4 years ago and 4.5 years ago. They look at what it is now and they're like, oh, why would anyone think Cardano was ever going to fail? But at the time, the sentiment was Cardano was failing, that it was a dead project and it was never going to turn around. And I started buying it when it was 11 cents. And then it went to 9 cents, and then it went to 7 cents, and then it went to 5 cents, and then it went to 3 cents. Then it went to 1.7 cents. And I was accumulating all the way down, which is frustrating from some sense. But if you could personally rewind time and be buying it at those prices, would you? Well, yeah, because even at today's price, it's even above that 11 cents. And if you had sold it during the following bull market, you could have sold it at over $3, like $3.30 is what it topped out at. So it made really good money, especially if you were buying at 3 cents. It went 100x from there. But at the time, it seemed like, oh my gosh, the sentiment was very bearish. Most people were saying Cardano was dead. It would never get off the ground. It hadn't even launched its testnet, much less its mainnet. So now you can look at Cardano and there's things built on it, and there's DEXs built on it, and their smart contracts work. Well, none of that was the case back then. So you look at the Comey, and its price has absolutely gotten punished from its bull market of 2021. And it's come down tremendously. In fact, it just looks like almost over last year, down only to these really, really low levels, and people are freaked out. Oh my gosh. In fact, let me just change this to here. And it's like, oh my gosh, the price has just gotten devastated. This is terrible. Why do you like Ecomi? Oh my gosh, it's gotten even cheaper. And so I've been dollar cost averaging on the way down with this. Now, what would be amazing is if I had a magic crystal ball, I knew exactly where the bottom was and I could buy exactly the bottom. Cool. That would make me way more money if I had that. I don't have that. So what I do, because I don't have that, is I dollar cost average in at what I feel are strong fundamental buy prices. And then sometimes it goes even lower, and it has. It's gotten even lower. And a lot of people see that as a bad thing. I see that as an amazing thing on a project that I still feel like the team is doing the right things that will keep them alive until the coming bull market, and that they've got a strong potential upside for when their narrative hits. It's kind of like you're wanting a product really bad and you go to the store and it's on 50% off sale. Would that be a bad thing? So it's on a massive sale here. I think this is a massive buy price. I've been accumulating on this tremendously. Now, unfortunately, I wish I had known where the bottom was. I would have gotten a lot more for a lot cheaper. Didn't know where that bottom was. So I've been accumulating at all these price ranges, all in here. Majority of it has been under in this price range. But at this price, it is an absolutely steal of a price. I love it. For me, it's a huge buy at that price. All right, let me check up on the comment. On the comments, Andrew says, OMI also needs to wait to go up so I can roll profits from other coins into it. I like it. How high is the chance the founders of Via Comi Orbis will talk about OMI in the future in a video? Probably low chance until the US SEC gives better clarity and regulatory framework so that a project, the problem is it's all, those lines are all fuzzy. And I would be very concerned if the founders of Vivi were coming out and talking about OMI every day. I know a lot of people want that. They don't understand the problems that that creates for the project. And they feel like me saying this is an excuse. Well, I'm sorry, like you don't understand this yet. It's cool that you don't understand it. Maybe you've not done business at this level before and you just don't get that part yet. Just understand that as an investor, if they were talking about OMI every day, I would be more likely to sell my OMI rather than buy more, because that would be putting a huge target on their back for the US SEC to go after them and say they're behaving like a security by talking about their token all the time. And so I'm glad they're behaving exactly like they are behaving. How likely are they to talk about OMI in a future video? Very unlikely. They do have their Ecomi representative, Foster Hill, who talks about it. And that's probably the extent that is going to be talking about it for the foreseeable future. Now, if Trump wins the US election, he replaces Gary Gensler with somebody very pro-crypto and hopefully replace a few more board members on the SEC with very much more pro-crypto people, as well as some good regulatory clarity comes out on what they can and can't do and what's a security and what's not a security. And if they fall solidly in the category of not a security, then you will probably see them talk about it all the time. Until then, they're better not talking about it. Do I think if Trump wins, the SEC will change? Yes, yes, and yes. Do I think if Kamala wins, she said she would replace Gary Gensler if she wins. If she replaces Gary Gensler, it will probably be in line with somebody just like Gary Gensler. So will she probably deliver on that promise? I imagine she would. I don't see why she wouldn't. I just am not hopeful that it would be somebody pro-crypto, because it's half of the Democratic Party has taken a very anti-crypto stance. And unfortunately, it's the half that Kamala Harris is on. So I don't think that she would be pro-crypto. Now, half the Democrat Party has gone very pro-crypto, and that's cool. So the Democrat Party is split on this. I'd say at least 90% of the Republican Party is pro-crypto. There's 10% that are just kind of big government, big establishment Republicans that have gone anti-crypto, and they favor seemingly the current system, and they want central bank digital currencies. That's kind of the Bush side of the Republican Party is what it seems like. The George Bush, Dick Cheney side. Yeah, so we'll see how it plays out in this coming month. Zephazer has a question for you.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that it will hit again. And the reason for that being that in the next phase, there's going to be a lot of wealth swilling around looking to be spent. And, you know, if Bitcoin is over 100,000 and we're seeing the S&P, you know, 7,000 and all these sorts of things, then there's a much better chance that people will start to froth up their investments, look at their 401ks and say, oh yeah, I'm going to invest in lots of other things. So I think that's all to come. I mean, it doesn't guarantee it, but I think there is a better chance that it will come back in the narrative into next year and possibly the year after.
Yeah, I do think this coming year we're going to see some massive blowups with crypto. Some things go really, really big. And keep in mind, if they do go really, really big, that what goes up doesn't go up for forever, especially in crypto. It's got this very volatile lifespan, and it's got a life cycle that goes every 4 years. Now, at a certain point, it may decouple from that 4-year Bitcoin halving life cycle, where every 4 years it blows up tremendously, goes crazy, and then it pulls back astoundingly, like savagely. But I don't know when that decoupling from that cycle happens. I don't think it's going to be soon. So I think this coming year is going to be an epic crypto year, whether Kamala wins or Trump wins. And then we'll probably have a savage pullback from there, is my guess. I don't see why NFTs and digital collectibles, I don't see why that narrative doesn't hit this coming bull run. There's a lot of people right now that it just won't. And it's because it hasn't done well for 2.5 years. So as human beings, we make the assumption that what has been happening is going to continue to happen. That's not necessarily the case. Cool. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the picks. See you next week.
All right. Well, so crypto is emotionally volatile and the price is very volatile. And sometimes that just weighs you down. I remember what it felt like last bear market. I knew intellectually that things would turn around, but you're just kind of like burnt out. You're like, Now, for those of you who have been following the signs, like the signs are looking bullish. I mean, Bitcoin pushing back up to almost previous all-time highs. There's a lot of reason to believe on an intellectual level that things are going to go really well this coming year. Number one, since 2013, every 4 years, we've had a massive blow off top. So 2013, 2017, 2021, and here we are going into 2025. So that is going well. Bitcoin's price getting really close to previous all-time highs is reflective of that's gearing up to happen again. A lot of U.S. interest in crypto, a lot of pressure on the politicians to go positive on crypto. That's all bullish too. So I don't see why 2025 isn't an epic year for crypto. I think the chances are high that it will be, and those are the chances that I'm taking. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate it. You guys, long-term viewers, you know what this wrap is all about. Enjoy it. This just reinforces the principles that I share, and it's just a fun way as you listen to this, just kind of help on the emotions, because it's our emotional side that gets hit and causes us to take the wrong actions. Even though intellectually we often know what the right thing to do is, we make a lot of our decisions based on emotion.
Came into this space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, to leave in a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic. smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, say the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time to be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.